Will Specialized give us a brand new aero gravel bike in 2024? And will SRAM launch a new Red AXS group set? These rumours, predictions and more are the topic for today's video. We'll start with bikes and then do group sets in the second half of the video, but you can skip ahead with chapter links down below. I'll give each prediction rumour a rating out of 10 for how likely I think this one is to actually happen next year. And of course, let me know if you agree or disagree by leaving a comment down below. So let's start with Specialized. And I think they have a space in their lineup for a brand new aero gravel bike. We are seeing races like Unbound over the US being raced at crazy high speeds. 20 miles per hour average to 200 miles on gravel just blows my mind. So gravel racing is getting fast and serious. And then of course there's the gravel world champs. And we've seen bike manufacturers respond with loads of interesting aero gravel bikes. There's the likes of the BMC Cayuse with the crazy narrow handlebars. There's the Villiers Rave SLR and the Canyon Grail and many others. So when you look at the Specialized range, there is definitely a gap there for a bike like that. They currently had the Crux, which is super lightweight and a bike I love. And then they had the Diverge and the Diverge SDR, but none of those bikes are aero. And I think I'd like to see a bike that retains the low weight of the Crux with tyre clearance for a 45 or 47mm wide tyre. Some mounts for mudguards and extra bike packing features would be nice to give it a versatility. Down tube storage like on the Grail and of course the Diverge. But then the aerodynamics of the Tarmac. So basically merge the Crux and the Tarmac into one bike and you have a fantastic looking aero lightweight gravel bike. And I think that's a hot take for 2024. No feature shock, you get the comfort from the big tyres, and as you're racing on gravel, comfort is a bit lower down that list of priorities after speed, aero, weight and other features like that. So that's my prediction for 2024, a brand new aerodynamic gravel race bike from Specialized. And I put a rating on that of 8 out of 10 of how likely I think personally it is to happen. I could of course be totally wrong, but we'll see what happens over the next 12 months. Sticking with gravel for the next bike is the Cervelo Aspero, which I think is due for an update. It was launched back in 2019 and I reviewed it at Road CC and was very impressed. Impressed for a company with all that road background to launch a fast and capable and good looking gravel race bike. And it's definitely a bike that needs a few tweaks here and there to bring it up to date. I don't think it needs a big redesign. I think the underlying foundations of that bike are sound, just needs a few nips and tucks here and there. So changes to the Aspero to bring it bang up to date and in line with the Canyon Grail and other bikes in the market right now, for me would include a bit more aero, because more aero is no bad thing. Bigger tyre clearance would be nice, from 44 of the current bike up to 47 or even 50. Give a bit more options for fitting the tyres you want. That original was designed both around 700C and 650B with a flip chip in the fork dropout to maintain the same trail with big and small wheels. But given how 650B isn't that popular anymore and more bikes are being designed around 700C with big fat tyres, I think we see that feature being dropped or maybe modified for a different use. And then a lighter weight frame, because 1100 grams isn't super lightweight compared to its rivals in this space. And then a change I think we can all agree on would be a move from the current BB right bottom bracket standard to something like a 68mm threaded bottom bracket or even a T47 to make maintenance and upgrading that bike a bit easier. So I'll give that a 9 out of 10 for happening in 2024. Now we'll move on from gravel bikes to road bikes, and we'll start with Cannondale, who I think have two models in their range that might be updated in 2024. We'll start with their aero platform, the Systemsix, which was launched a few years ago. But this year we have the very successful update of the Super 6, the all-round lightweight and now aero bike, and the new bike was fantastic. If you haven't seen my review of that bike yet, It's linked up above to go and watch that. And it's a bike that the company claims with some deep session wheels is almost as aero as the current Super 6, which is very, very impressive indeed. But it does raise the question of what can it do to maintain that aero advantage over the Super 6. Now, there are two possible options here. They either ditch the System 6, as Specialized did with Avenge, and put everything into the Super 6 being their lightweight aero race bike, or they try and move on the aerodynamics of the System 6 to maintain a clear gap between the two models. And there have been changes to UCI rules around what tubing dimensions and profiles are allowed in key areas like the head tube, the bottom brackets and so on. And those changes could give the US company some scope to find some more aero savings on the System 6 to maintain that advantage over the Super 6. So an interesting position for Cannondale to be in. So either scrap it or update it. And my prediction on that actually happening, I'll probably put it at 7 out of 10. So fairly confident we might see something, whether it's good news or bad news for fans of the System 6. And the other bike I think we might see an update on next year is the Synapse, the company's endurance road bike. So this was updated in 2020, so about 2 years ago. No, 2021, about 2 years ago. Recently, but it wasn't received all that well for one key reason, well, 4 reasons really. Smart Sense, their decision to put a battery on the down tube powering front and rear lights and a rear radar. Now in theory the idea is sound, but the fact it was baked into the frame and forced on consumers at most price points wasn't met with a very warm or welcome or positive reaction at all. But ignore Smart Sense, and the update to the underlying frame was fantastic. A bit more aero, a bit lighter, more tire clearance. So a really sporty riding endurance bike, and a bike that does ride as well as other bikes in the category like the Giant Defy, which I think is probably one of the benchmarks in the endurance bike category right now. And the Synapse has been a very, very important bike for the last 10 plus years. It's been one of the biggest sellers. A fantastic comfort focused road bike. I had the previous generation in 2018 for 2 years and I did everything on that. Belgian Sportives, did some road racing on it, big all axis, a super versatile, fantastically smooth riding endurance bike. So a lot is riding on an update to that new bike, but a chance of that actually happening I would put at a 5 out of 10. So I'm fairly cautious about it happening or not. I think it needs to happen to make that bike relevant in the endurance bike category, which we have seen this year be given a new lease of life, or at least bikes being designed that you guys are actually warming to. So definitely room for a new Synapse in their range and in the world, and a bike I hope we will see next year. Sticking with endurance bikes, there are some rumours of a new BMC Roadmachine, a Swiss company, with their endurance bike, which had been around for quite a few years and changed quite a bit over that time as well. And there is a picture which I'll flag up now that somebody shared with me on Instagram that does point to a new bike, and my goodness, does it look interesting. So Roadmachine is a good endurance bike. It's not my favourite in the world. When I reviewed it a few years ago when it launched, I found it a bit on the firm side, and if the picture of the bike is to be believed, they clearly focus on 2 things: weight and comfort. Firstly, there's a super skinny front end. They removed as much material from the head tube and tube profiles as possible. Then we have that seat post, likely to allow it to bend back and forward more when you're riding over a rough road or over cobbles. And of course, it looks very aero too, doesn't it? And off the back of the Team Machine R, we might have some interesting aero tweaks to improve the performance of this bike. But some changes we can't see from the photos that I hope they do implement on the new bike, if it is the new bike, is space for wide tyres. The current bike is maxed out at 33, I think, off the top of my head. So space for 35, 38 or 40 to match a Defy and Roubaix will be fantastic to see. And hopefully we get mudguard mounts because it rains a lot in the UK. Maybe some mounts for bike packing bags like on the top tube and elsewhere on the frame. So if that picture is to be believed, I think it's a safe 10 out of 10 for a new BMC Roadmachine in 2024. Right, let's look at group set rumours for 2024. I've got one for each of the three big manufacturers, but we'll start with SRAM. Now, I think we are likely to see a new Red group set, their flagship top-of-the-line group set in 2024, because it was last updated in 2019, and we've had Rival, Apex, and a Gen 2 Force in that time. So I think Red is due for an update. But what could it do? Well, there are a few possible guesses, and a wild one I'll share in a moment. Now, the more obvious update would include a focus on lower weight. Now, it's pretty lightweight, but we have seen group sets with the advent of hydraulic disc brakes and electronics and battery get heavier compared to 5 or 10 years ago. So trying to save some weight on that group set to possibly make it the lightest group set on the market right now would be a good move, because people love lightweight components. There's plenty of weight we need to watch in this video, I'm sure. I don't think we'll see a jump from 12 speed, that it is right now, to 13 speed. I do predict we'll stay with 12 speed with the flagship road bike group sets from Shimano, SRAM and Campag for the next few years at least, which is no bad thing, because plenty of people are still on 11 and 10 speed. So you need to move at a pace that the market generally can keep up with. So I think 12 speed is a fairly safe bet. And when it comes to gear ratios, I think they'll largely be the same as what we have now. I don't see the 10-2 sprocket going away anytime soon, but we might see some new cassette offerings, some new chain set offerings as well, as this is a pro level racing group set. So we might see some tweaks here and there. But then the one big update I expect to see as part of a new Red group set are brand new hoods, with a focus on them being smaller and lighter. So Red right now still has the original quite bulbous, chunky hoods, where Rival, Apex and Gen 2 Force have the smaller hoods, which are a big improvement. But I like to see those hoods taken a step further, made even smaller, and the square shape to be rounded off so a bit smoother. And I think if they get closer to what Shimano is doing with Di2 12 speed, which in my opinion are the benchmark for hood ergonomics, that would be no bad thing at all. So that is a safe prediction for SRAM Red, and I say 8 out of 10 of how likely it is to happen. But a more wild prediction and rumour is that they bring their mountain bike T-type transmission to the road bike group set for the first time. So a quick recap in case you missed it. For the mountain bike group sets, they have a brand new direct mount rear derailleur. They've done away with the mech hanger, the weak link on a group set, and the rear mechanism bolts directly to the frame, and it makes it much more secure, stronger and safer in the event of a crash, and shifting can be more precise because that sometimes wonky mech hanger has been eliminated. And that would be a bold move by SRAM if they do that, but the reason I don't think it will happen just yet, and it's probably 2 or 3 years away from happening, is that most of the road bikes, the flagship race bikes on the market right now, like the Tarmac SL8 launched just a few months ago, aren't compatible with the UDH mech hanger type, which you need for a T-type transmission to work. So if they launch that brand new group set with that all new funky rear mech design, there wouldn't be many top-end race bikes they can actually fit it to. Unless they do something like have 2 versions available at the same time, they bring that T-type transmission to Red but have a regular version, so trying to ease us or the bike industry or top-end frame manufacturers into T-type by offering both at the same time. But what we have seen in the past, and why I think it might happen, but maybe not yet, but maybe in a few years' time, is that we've seen a lot of mountain bike technology trickle over to the roadside, and that being the case in the past, so why wouldn't it be the case in the future? So that's probably a 2 out of 10 of how likely it is to happen in 2024. So low odds on that one for sure. I think it's fairly safe to say that Shimano will launch a Di2 version of its new 12-speed GRX gravel bike group set in 2024. I don't know why they didn't launch it at the same time as the mechanical version. Maybe it's supply issues, or maybe just give that mechanical group set a bit of time in the spotlight before next year unveiling an electronic version of that group set. So that is a fairly safe punt on it actually happening, probably a 9 or 8 out of 10 of it actually happening, because Shimano are fairly predictable in the updates. They move slowly, they don't do anything wild or unexpected like SRAM do, so a bit easier to predict what Shimano will do, and GRX Di2 is a fairly safe bet. So 12 speed, the same cassette options as mechanical, basically just different shifters and a rear mech, and hey presto, off you go. So that would be a fairly obvious but a popular update for sure. And as for their road bike group sets, well, it gets a bit trickier here really, because we've had 105 mechanical and now 105 Di2 launch, and Dura-Race and Ultegra, although they've been around for about 2 years now, maybe 2.5 years, they're definitely not showing their age. They are fantastic group sets, and other than weight savings or some new gear ratios, it's hard to see what Shimano could do to Dura-Race and Ultegra. Well, they could update the brakes, make the brakes a bit more reliable for people who have issues with the brakes in terms of pad clearance, more adjustment as well. But what we might see next year is a new Tiagra group set. This is currently the group set sitting below 105 and is 10 speed right now. So we might see that move to 11 speed and bring some of that old 105 technology to that Tiagra price point. And that would be a good thing, because we have seen Shimano over the past many decades trickle down all that Dura-Race Ultegra goodness to more affordable levels. So a Tiagra group set that is basically 105 in all but name, with 11 speed, mechanical shifting, no Di2, good price point, and given the way bike prices are going up, will be just a thing we need. And then to Campagnolo, a group set manufacturer we mustn't forget, but it's easy to do given the way their market share has dwindled over the last few years, which is a real shame. I'd love to see a bigger share for Campag, but it's the way it is. Shimano are dominant, SRAM are fairly close behind, and Campag have been squeezed out, but some of it is their own fault. So Super Record Wireless launched this year, but the reception to a group set was fairly lukewarm at best. I mean, for a start, it's insanely expensive. It has a bit of a mishmash of Shimano Di2 and SRAM AXS in the batteries and the shifters. It doesn't look as pretty as group sets from Campag should do, and they've lost a thumb shifter, the iconic thumb shifter, for a fairly rudimentary shifter design. But I must add that I haven't ridden the group set yet, I haven't used it yet, so hopefully it rides better and it performs better than the specs suggest from when that group set launched. But what I hope to see from Campag in 2024 is 2 new Ekar group sets. This is a very popular 1x13 gravel bike group set that launched a few years ago now, and I really like it. Mechanical shifting, fantastic gear ratio from that 13 speed cassette. But what Campag has sadly failed to do is follow that successful launch with both a cheaper version to make it more affordable on lower price bikes with less carbon and more aluminium, and an electronic version, whether wireless or wired, it doesn't really matter, for those top end money no object gravel bikes and for the pros who like to use the best equipment available. Whether it's actually better or faster, it's another thing. So I think they've missed a trick by not offering 2 new follow-up Ekar group sets, but hopefully we might see those in 2024. But my prediction for that actually happening, I'm fairly conservative on a 6 out of 10. I really hope that happens next year, but I wouldn't hold your breath. I wouldn't hold your breath on that actually happening. Anyway, those are my predictions and rumours for the bikes and group sets that might, just might, be launched in 2024. Let me know what you want to see launched next year by leaving a comment down below. And if you want to see some of the best bikes I reviewed in 2023, then watch this video up here. But that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very soon.